Good evening, everyone. I'm calling to order the January 17th, 2024 meeting of the Southborough Zoning Board of Appeals. You want to go ahead with our first agenda item?
Sure. The Board of Appeals of the Town of Southborough, will hold a public hearing located at the McAuliffe Hearing Room, Townhouse, 17 Common Street, Wednesday, January 17th, 2024 at 7 o'clock p.m. with regard to the petition of Patricia Burns Fiore, located at 10 Winter Street, map 38, lot 32, Southborough, Mass. The petitioner is seeking a special permit and a variance to allow an accessory apartment that exceeds the maximum habitable floor area. The property is located in the residential B district. Relief is requested under section 174-9B.
Thank you. All right. Do we have anybody here to present for the applicant? If you could, just identify yourself and address.
Sure. Patricia Burns Fiore, 10 Winter Street.
Is the mic on? Oh, okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
Patricia Burns Fiore, 10 Winter Street.
Okay. Do you have anything that you want to present or anything you'd like to sort of,
Everything is in the application.
Yeah, right.
I purchased this house with this building. I apologize for my voice, I'm kind of hoarse.
It's okay.
Purchased a house with this building behind it 20 years ago. So I don't really know the extent of when that was built. We haven't found building permits and stuff. But I would like to turn it into an apartment, and I think would be a really good use to have it as a one-bedroom apartment. It wouldn't disrupt the neighborhood at all. It has separate parking, separate driveway, and that's it.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer any questions.
So before we begin, I'm just going to note, you do have it, the packet includes, the Board of Health said it's not a problem, your septic system is fine. We also know that the planning board needs to review.
They already have.
Yeah, and they voted 4-0 with one member being absent to recommend to grant the special permit contingent upon ZBA approval of the variance to exceed the 25% habitable floor area threshold. So we understand that's kind of the main issue here. Also understand it's a fairly old house. There's not a lot of square footage. I think we've actually discussed some of these points regarding the 25%. We understand where it comes from, but...
Absolutely, but the building is the building.
Yeah.
It would be prohibitive to make it smaller to meet that 25% threshold.
Right. Okay. So what I would like to do then is just ask the members here if they have any questions for you. And we'll start at the end with Doug.
No questions, honestly. I think it's pretty straightforward. I think as we talked about before, there definitely is a housing crisis, and I think this is a great opportunity to create an accessory dwelling unit at the property. And but no specific question. I think the package was clear, and I don't have anything further.
Okay, thank you. Jamie?
Yeah, I'll echo what Doug said. No questions. Thought the packet was great, and I really don't have any issues.
Thank you. Paul?
I agree also with the previous two. I have no questions and like what was stated.
Okay, thanks. Doris?
I have no questions. I really appreciate a complete application, and as David alluded, we're aware of the 25% rule and how it can impact small square footage. I think this ADU is a good addition to the town.
Thank you. Mike?
Just a question. I saw it as in the application that there won't be a change to the number of bedrooms. Is that correct?
In what way?
With respect to the septic, it's going to stay consistent.
So my original thought was to increase the septic by adding in another leach line because the tank was big enough, but I'm too close to the reservoir.
Okay.
So I can't enlarge the septic. So it means that my guest room goes away.
Got it. Okay, I just wanted to check on that.
Yeah.
Just, that's all.
Frankly, my guest room is probably smaller than many people's walk-in closets, so it's not going to be terribly messy.
Understood.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and it was noted that you have a compliant 3-bedroom septic system, so 2 in your main house. What you're proposing is a single bedroom, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
No, I would agree with the fellow board members that it was a very thorough package, explained very well, so that's what leads to not having a lot of questions here.
Thank Laura for her help with that.
Yeah, you know she's good. But, so to be clear, as far as voting, Doug is an alternate for tonight, since we have everybody else here, right? So,
And I
okay.
think it's important just to notice for the record, based on the size of the home, its location, you know, it's going to meet those criterias for special permit and the variance.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I think we need to make note of that in the findings.
Absolutely.
It is really due to, the nature, the house is older, it's very small. The lot being where it is, next to a
Respect to the
bottled water.
septic, yep.
Right, impacts what you can do with the septic.
It's not more detrimental.
Right.
You know, it is consistent with the neighbors.
Right. And I think, like we like to point out, I think one point we could raise here is there doesn't seem to be any abutters here to raise a concern. So it is a neighborhood I'm familiar with. I live
Same.
fairly close to it, so I can appreciate the fact that an older home where you have a creative opportunity to do something like this is to me, is a good use, so. All right, if there are no questions from the public or another board or board members, then we could
Did we
probably.
receive any notices or mailings on this?
There wasn't any, okay.
Okay.
The first thing we would have to do is close the public hearing, so.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on this matter.
I'll second it.
Okay, the motion's been made to close the public meeting with a second. All in favor, respond with aye, opposed nay. Jamie?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Doris?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And Williams is aye as well. And again, I don't think we really had any concerns here regarding conditions. We could probably just kind of get right to the heart of the matter to approve the special permit.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the petition as drafted.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the petition as drafted with a second. All in favor, respond with aye, opposed nay. Jamie?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Doris?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And Williams, aye.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Permit is approved. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, and ahead of the, did we make it 7:15?
It is 7:15, so you can take either the minutes or annual report or anything like that. If there's something there that you want to just knock off the agenda?
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, did everybody have a chance, I should say, to review the minutes from previous meetings? I actually went through them quite a bit. They're really long, as you know, but they looked like they're pretty intact to me. I thought I found something minor. I could not go back and find it, so I don't know, how's everybody else feel about there was 2 sets of minutes, right? 2 separate meetings.
Yep. We had December 13th, which was the opening hearing of 120 Turnpike 40B, and then we had December 20th, which was the opening of the 250 Turnpike hearing.
Right.
Just as a point of order, I was not part of the December 20th deliberation. So I
Correct.
was
Okay.
out.
Okay.
Just as a,
So we can take them separately then.
Yes.
That way, it doesn't get
Vote on
awkward
it.
regarding the
So I just
voting.
wanted to-
goes. Okay, so, let's take them one at a time then. So for the December 13th hearing, we did have Mike, Doris, Paul, Jamie, and Doug was present as well as an alternate. So that was 120 Turnpike Road, the comprehensive permit and special permit
Make a motion to accept the minutes as drafted?
You have a second? Okay. I think Jamie seconded it.
did.
Okay. All right, that's fine.
It's like Jeopardy.
Motion has been made to accept the minutes from December 13th as written with a second. All in favor, respond with aye. Jamie?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Doris?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And Williams, aye. Okay, that approves that set of minutes. And now give me a few minutes to scroll down to the next set.
There was one thing that Doris had called out for the December 20th
Okay.
minutes. Page 4, first paragraph.
So, yeah, for this meeting, everyone was here except Mike. So
Correct.
Doug was sitting on that one. All right, so page 4.
I think it's the
What did you find?
first paragraph, where it says, "She then stated the board granted a special permit on the parking lot extending 30 feet into the residential zone, but that parking lot is not building, et cetera." She had asked me to fact check that, and a special permit had not been granted for that extension to 30 feet. So if it's all right with the board, I can change it to just Ms. Cahill asked what the reasoning was behind allowing the 30
Okay.
feet extension. Is that?
Yeah, that's adequate. I just
That's felt it adequate.
wasn't correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for calling that out.
And it was material to not being correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Did anybody else have any issues with the minutes as written? All right. I was generally okay with them, so, well, if we're okay with them, we could take a motion to approve them as written.
Motion to approve the December 20th minutes as written and rewritten.
Yes.
Second?
Good. We have a motion to approve the minutes as written with a second. All in favor, respond with aye. Opposed, nay. Doug?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Doris?
Aye.
And Williams, aye. So that will approve those minutes. Still,
We have 2 minutes.
it's still not, I think the Warren article is probably, I don't know if that's
That's going to probably extensive.
probably going to take a while. I think, I don't know if anybody had a chance to review the report, because that's isn't that in the?
Yep, the
on the
annual
agenda?
report.
Yeah. Yeah. I had taken a look at it, and I thought it looked like it covered pretty well what we did for 2023. I don't know if anybody had any concerns regarding them, or anything they felt needed to be corrected or clarified. We should probably just take a vote to approve them as written, right?
If you want to.
Yeah. All right, if we don't have if we're okay with that report, then I think we should probably just take a vote to approve the annual report as written, or make a motion to do such thing. I guess I'm asking somebody to make a motion.
I'm going to make, I'm going to make a motion to approve the annual report for 23, as written.
I'll
Se-
second. Oh,
Paul's got it?
Okay, we have a motion to approve the 2023 annual report of the ZBA as written with a second. All in favor, respond with aye. Opposed, nay. Doug?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
Paul?
aye.
Doris?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And Williams, aye. Okay, very good. And now, it's almost 7:15.
10 seconds.
10 seconds.
Yeah. We're
Oh, we're nothing if not punctual. Okay.
You're good.
Okay. All right, next on the agenda, we have 250 Turnpike Road. It's a continued hearing.
Yeah.
So, we don't have anything to read then for that, right? Yeah, okay. Okay, do we have somebody representing the applicant this evening?
Yes, Mr. Chair, good evening.
Charville.
I'm
Good evening.
Attorney Brian Charville, General Counsel for Ferris Development Group, here on behalf of the applicant, along with my associate, George Manon, also an attorney. And the applicant's principal, Mr. David Ferris, is in the audience with us. He's the manager for FD 250 Turnpike, which is the property owner. And we're happy to provide updates to the board following the initial hearing just before Christmas.
Yeah, I think you have something that's significant regarding the location, the locus of the building and the property line, as well as what we know is the split in the zone. So if you maybe address that to begin with?
Happy to. The board will recall that this special permit application seeks permission in order to build a contractor's yard on this property in what is now a impervious parking lot. We seek two aspects of special permit relief from the board, which is permission to have two principal uses on one lot, as well as two principal structures. You'll remember on the lot today is the 55,000 square foot self-storage building. And if approved by this board and also the planning board after a site plan review, then this would allow a contractor's yard of about 15,000 square feet. And we had looked at that site layout plan at the hearing just before Christmas. And we're pleased to report that after a meeting with interested abutters, and then talking with our engineer and Mr. Ferris agreeing to significant expense relating to reconfiguring the septic system, which is under that parking lot today, the applicant is able to move the contractor's yard entirely within the industrial zone portion of the lot. So we're pleased to update you with that. And we did file, I think last Thursday, a revised site layout plan that shows the new location of the proposed building entirely within the industrial zone.
Okay. Before we hear from any members of the public, we do have something from Melissa Danza from the Conservation Board. Quick note about the plan submitted for the hearing at 250 Turnpike Road. I assume, did you receive this communication or no?
Do you mind saying what the date was of it?
It is today, January 17th at 1:35 p.m.
I did not see that.
Okay, we can certainly share that with you. But what she notes in here that, one, the change in location of the building requires amended permits, in parentheses, order of conditions and stormwater management permit for the construction of the contractor's building. Two, the plan dated 1/9/2024 also has the elimination of two existing catch basins to the rear of the building where the existing pavement is now. The commission explicitly discussed that the applicant cannot disconnect the existing drainage that feeds into the detention basin. This elimination is also a change of the originally approved stormwater management system and takes water from the parking lot. The applicant will need to demonstrate to the Conservation Commission in their amendment request that the changes still comply with the requirements of the commission.
Very good. The board will recall that in November, we had obtained an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission taking this proposed building into account.
Right.
We had thought in consultation with our wetland scientist and our civil engineer that going back to the Conservation Commission would not be required because it was just moving the building on, again, one aspect of imperviousness to another.
Right.
But we're happy to go back to the Conservation Commission to make sure that
Okay.
the agent and the commission are satisfied.
And she had a third point here. The removal of pavement and change to lawn also requires to be included in the amendment to the permits. It's just all part of one process, right?
I didn't mention that, but in the revised site layout plan, you may have noted, it does provide for reducing the imperviousness by removing pavement, what would be to the south of the new yard.
Okay.
So we're happy to go to conservation to make sure they're satisfied.
Okay. I'm just going to give myself a minute to check. There was a few communications here. One from Ms. Luttrell. Do you want to elaborate on that? Yeah. I think it just might be helpful for everybody in attendance.
Mimi Luttrell, Planning Board Chair. My question is that the special permit before you is for two uses and two buildings on a lot, but the site plan that was submitted with the application shows changes to the exterior of the self-storage building, which one of the findings of the special permit for that use says no exterior alterations. And the site plan did not show any exterior alterations, and in fact, there were plantings there. So I'm wondering why that has nothing to do with this, why that is noted on the plans, and I'm hoping that if this is approved, it wouldn't be construed that that would be approved, seeing as there's not an amendment to that special permit before you.
Okay. Do you,
All that last week's site layout plan is intended to show is the building's footprint entirely in the industrial zone and the removal of the pavement to the south.
okay.
Nothing more. I understand that Chair Luttrell reads these revised plans very, very, very,
She does,
very,
which we appreciate.
very carefully. And the intent of last week's plan was not to change the self-storage building that has been completed but not yet opened.
So does that mean your updated plan will not have the 70-foot removal of plantings and addition of garage doors?
I'm not sure, but
Okay.
again, that is a matter for the planning board. And as I've said, at both instances of this hearing, we will go to the planning board to have a new major site plan approved.
Does that address your concern or not really?
Well, it's curious why that mysteriously is on there. It has nothing to do with this permit. I would feel better if it was removed from there because it has nothing to do with this permit. If they were to do that, they would have to come back first to this board to amend the special permit for the use because the original special permit, one of the findings is no exterior alterations, and adding garage doors is an exterior alteration.
This board's 2022 special permit allowed self-storage to occur in the existing building,
Yep.
and that's what the owner applicant intends to occur in that building, as soon as the planning board will allow the building to open.
So are you just saying that what you submitted is not the final plan, or?
It's a final plan in terms of this board's review, which is to approve 2 uses and 2 structures.
Okay,
That was the intent of the plan.
right.
I mean, it is not an existing conditions plan. It is a site layout plan, specifically intended just to show the building's
Yeah,
location.
yeah. So you're saying the details are going to come through in the site plan anyway?
Yes,
Site plan review.
as they always do.
Yep, yep, okay, fair enough. Any concerns, Mike?
No, I don't.
Yeah. I mean, it seems reasonable enough. We know you've got to go back through site plan review.
That's just it. It'd be an issue if they didn't have that, and I would make that as a stipulation, but otherwise, I'm okay with it.
I'm actually also interested, because we did talk a lot about, working with the neighbors and the abutters. I'd actually like to invite
Yes.
Mr. St. Andre, sorry. Would you mind just addressing how that's proceeded with the abutters and the applicant?
John St. Andre, 14 Schuyler Drive, and I represent a group of abutters and the neighbors that are directly affected by this 250 Turnpike Road area. Our major concern, of which there are many, but our major concern when we were here last time was that the placement of this contractor's building was going to straddle the industrial zone and the residential zone. And we were concerned that if the permit was allowed and the building was allowed to be placed there, then it would affect restrictions that are in effect that would prevent that from happening. So that was our major problem. We did meet with Mr. Ferris and his attorneys at his office with a few of the abutters. And I wouldn't call it Woodstock, but it was productive. Mr. Ferris said he was willing, at a great expense, to move the building off of the residential zone and put it entirely in the industrial zone. And that, from my point of view, stops the problem, the major problem that we had, because if that didn't take place, then we'd be talking about, if the permit was granted, having to appeal that and all the legal stuff that goes with it. I don't think we have to do that now. So that's been eliminated as far as I'm concerned. There are other issues that the abutters and the neighbors have, but that was the major one, and I think that the applicant has addressed that, and that was a very positive thing. We do have abutters and neighbors here today who have other concerns about the contractor's yard building, and I'm not saying that I am authorized to support the permit or to oppose the permit, but there are concerns that the neighbors and the abutters still have, which perhaps Mr. Ferris or his attorneys can address here tonight and maybe allay some of their concerns. But the major hurdle that I saw appears to be eliminated, and that's a big thing for us. So there was a good, I would say that it was a very productive, cooperative meeting. Not Woodstock, but not bad.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cultural reference is noted, thank you. Sorry, I'm just, that we did have other inputs. Karina Quinn, I'm trying to summarize it. Drainage easement language for off-site drainage and detention. I think that conservation has kind of addressed that, and that would certainly, if we're going to go forward, that would have to be, a condition of it.
And I think those planning comments, which I think came in yesterday, were merely, I think, to remind this board of the plan, of items remaining from the planning board's site plan determination for the self-storage building. The drainage easement, for example, has been finalized with town council and recorded.
Okay. Yeah. The existing parking lot area along the southerly edge that existed on the original larger lot prior to the A&R with the Residence A is an illegal use in the Residence A zone if used as part of the self-storage facility project. But you're addressing that by moving it forward, right? Okay. While I'm doing this, do we have other questions? Jamie, you want to go ahead?
A few questions. When I was looking at the plan, I may be misremembering, but I think originally you said that the trucks were going to come around the back and drive in. Is it now that I saw the plan, there's like a walkway and the trucks are going to, I'm assuming there's like a garage door that...
The building's
Well-
orientation will remain the same in the sense it will run west to east, and the roll-up doors will face to the north. Just by shifting the building to the north, the area for them to turn will be slightly less than it had been before.
But the roll-up door is basically on the Route 9 side, not the residential side? Okay.
The residential side will only have a second egress, a man door, or person door, if you will.
Okay. I think, Laura, do you mind putting the site plan up? I know you guys attested to this, and I believe you, but it looked like it was very close to that residential industrial line, so just confirming that 100%, obviously, surveys will be done and the building will remain.
Yeah. In this board's decision, which we had sent in a draft for the board to consider, could certainly state that black and white.
And then I think my only other question for now is that I remember there being some discussion on a fence that had been promised. With this new orientation or movement, what does that mean for the original promise related to the fence?
There will still be a fence, certainly between the rear of the building or the southern side of it and the lot line. It'll be a matter for the planning board's major site plan approval about its final location, if it differs at all from where it was shown in their 2022 site plan, which was, as we talked about last time, along the zone line.
It's really the major change here is where this was 30 feet down.
Correct. Yes.
Right through that line.
The red rectangle was 30 feet further south than it's shown here in the first version of this plan.
Right, but the fence will cover basically both buildings, correct? Like, it'll go through that whole line, not just
No.
where that new building's been?
No, in the 2022 site plan decision from the planning board, the fence basically encircles the parking lot. So it goes basically within the wood line that is shown, the tree line, further north actually. So the southern face of it is along the zone line, right there, but then it stops where the trees begin, right? Say there and runs north.
I see. All
That's how it's supposed to be done
right, I
as
got
of
it.
2022. It'll be
Okay.
up to this planning board about whether that changes at all to more appropriately encircle the contractor's yard.
All right, that's all I have for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Doris, did you have something?
I had a question. Do we have a setback issue even though it's the same owner of the residential lot?
Well, you could, it does seem like a reasonable issue, but I think the setbacks apply to a property line, and this is a zoning line, so I don't
Correct.
think
Okay.
that will apply.
Attorney Banan has specifically looked at that, and all references to setback are from the lot line, not the zone.
Right.
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
Right, I think we did talk about kind of extensively the, sort of the history or the legal history of the divided, and it really, or actually, we talked about the exception in the zoning saying you could allow for the less restrictive use, but like the intent of that was really not what this is. I think we did,
Yes, we've
spent
tried to
some
take
time
that off
talking
the
about-
table
yeah.
by moving the building's footprint
Okay.
in industrial.
Okay,
Yep.
got it. I have some other points, but only if the public raised them again.
Okay.
Okay, second hold.
Doug, did you have anything? No. Okay. Mike, you were on this one.
Unless there's public comment.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually, like, as I mentioned before, I was very interested in what Mr. St. Andre had to say regarding, it did seem like there was a good faith effort to work with the abutters, but this would be a good opportunity for any of the neighborhood, any of the neighbors, any of the abutters to raise any concerns or questions.
So hello, John Palmer, 131 Parkerville Road. So I am a direct abutter, just a couple of doors down from the site. And in fact, since the developer has started to clear a bunch of the trees along the property line, I'm actually able to look directly onto the parking lot, and I can see what's happening from my bedroom, from my backyard and so forth. So I am truly a direct abutter of what they're proposing here. So a couple of things. I'm glad to see that they've moved the building completely onto the industrial zoned lot. So that's good news. But I am still very concerned about what's being proposed. It's very different and larger in scale than what was permitted last year at this time. Back in December of '22. It's 2 uses, 2 structures. I want to make sure that this second building, follows zoning, first and foremost. And to the point that was just made, I'm no zoning expert, but I would have thought the setbacks applied to the zoning line, not the lot line. The lot line was changed, so that would imply that, hey, if you want to get past the setbacks, just change the lot line. So I would think the the zoning and the setbacks would apply to the zoning line, not the lot line. So that's one concern. And then I just want to make sure that as this goes forward, if it does get approved, I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to influence and that the developer and the town will work with us as direct abutters to address our concerns regarding the use, regarding the lighting, the noise, hours of operation, all that sort of thing. I would assume, and you can help clarify for me, I assume that this would go from, ZBA approval, if you guys do approve it, back to the planning board for that major site plan review. And that would be our opportunity to further voice our concerns about the use and the lighting and the buffering and all that good stuff. So that's in short my concerns about what's being proposed.
Is this something that has been discussed already with the abutters? Are the details of the application?
Not in terms of things that are within the jurisdiction of the planning board, not yet.
Okay.
But we,
all right.
again, had a very good meeting on Friday the 5th.
Yep.
So there's no reason that couldn't continue as we finalize the appropriate drawings that go to the planning board.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'm just concerned. I don't want us to go forward and put it all on planning board for site plan review. If there's something that, really we should put, because the ZBA has the ability, obviously, to put conditions in place to say this is what has to happen. And again, I have full faith in the planning board to do the site plan review as they're supposed to. But I guess I'm just being a little bit concerned. I don't want to leave a gap somehow. So I don't know, am I being a little bit crazy, Mike, or what? No, I was looking at you. You're the lawyer.
I think you're being a little crazy.
Okay.
I think of the
Sometimes.
2022 site plan decision and how thorough the planning board was there
Yeah.
about fencing and everything that Mr. Palmer mentioned. Fencing, lighting,
Okay.
hours of operation. The only word he used that is within this, you guys have to decide hopefully tonight, is uses.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's what I want us to focus on, because, again, I always we have different roles
Right.
as planning and zoning, and that's site plan review.
Okay.
When I hear those type of genuine
Right,
concerns, I'm not
right.
trying to minimize those.
Right.
But I also understand what our role is, and if our planning board wasn't conscientious, I'd maybe have a different thought
Right.
of that, but
Okay.
to me, I just want to stick to, I just want to stick to what's in front of us.
Okay.
That's my perspective.
Do you, I would like to ask, maybe do you agree with all that regarding the site plan review?
Mostly, yes.
Mostly, yeah. I mean, he is talking about details, right? Correct? Screening, lighting.
Right.
So it does make sense to me that we need to focus on one thing, and it does feel like it's falling more in those
So that
details of planning board.
So if the use is approved,
Yep.
and I still have some questions on that,
Mm-hmm.
then all of those things, you're correct, fall to the planning board for the details on the site.
Okay.
Exactly.
But
Okay.
I would caution, although setbacks may be lot, there is, in landscaping, there's a 20-foot landscape buffer required between a non-residential and a residential zone line. So that building would not be in compliance with our landscaping bylaw, because it's right on the zone line. And how tall is the building? Are like backhoes going to fit in there? Cherry pickers?
Do you have a 24-foot garage door? I don't remember. No, it probably wasn't that
Yeah,
tall.
We've submitted elevations to this board.
Yeah, I don't know where we have that. Yeah, if you could. So, I'm sorry, what between we have specific zoning that is when you're between a residential and industrial, there's a landscaping buffer. And how wide is that supposed to be?
20 feet. 20 feet unless it's industrial park, then it's 50 feet.
All right. And is there a specific placement for that landscape buffer that has to remain
Along
on the
the,
industrial?
along the zone line.
Along it, right. So I guess my question is, does that mean you need the building to go forward even further, or is it just that it needs to be landscaped along that border?
So it would need to be, need to be landscaped along the industrial side of the border
Okay,
for a buffer to the residential zone.
Do you want me to share it?
scroll down, yeah.
Screen share it.
What is it? Is it 29? Can't.
Looks like
Yeah, scroll down a little bit.
23.9.
23.9? I just can't see without my glasses.
That's the roof, though. Well, if we're talking about the height of the building, but if you scroll,
I mean, the height of the ridge line would be higher, but it's.
yeah. Yeah, I don't think the height's gonna be a problem. But I'm curious about the door. 12-foot wide, I don't think there's a dimension on the height of the door.
If the question's being asked if a backhoe's gonna fit in there, it'd be an awfully small backhoe.
It would be, yeah, that's not, those,
Yeah, you can fit a mini Bobcat in there short, but it's not gonna be a place to park heavy equipment.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, just restate then the two big concerns I'd have from your perspective, the zoning board's perspective. One would be, the setbacks relative to the, zoning line versus the property line. And I'm no zoning expert, but I'd ask the ZBA to weigh in on that. And then secondly, the change in use. This is significant. This is 2 buildings, 2 uses. That's not what was talked about a year ago. So those are the 2 primary concerns at this point.
okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm trying to find that specific zoning. Come on.
Do you have a zoning book?
I have the code.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have it with
Do
me.
you wanna,
Oh, good.
did you wanna, yeah, go ahead.
I did. Janet Maney, 21 Skylar Drive. It is sometimes confusing knowing which issues come before zoning board of appeals versus planning board. But use is directly under your purview for approving this, okay?
Right.
So I don't really know what a contractor yard is supposed to be or is planned to be. But they're saying that this is 100% for storage. But yet they're putting bathrooms in each unit. It's going to be heated. It seems like more is going to occur than just storage. I don't know whether people are going to be working there, running saws. I wish that would be clarified.
Okay. What's your response regarding the uses?
We're before the board on 2 buildings
Yep.
and 2 uses.
Okay.
And contractor's yard is a by right use in the industrial zone. Contractor's yard is not defined in the Southborough zoning bylaw. I referenced the Marlborough zoning ordinance when we talked last time. But again,
Yeah, I
It's
think,
contractor's yard.
yeah, right. It's just I think contractor's yard building is actually not defined in our zoning code. Contractor's yard is certainly. And, I mean, it might serve our purposes to be specific about uses. I mean, I would think the intention is more a storage location for equipment, right? This is not a working area.
Right.
So you wouldn't object to us putting in conditions saying something to that effect?
I'd have to talk to my client about that.
Okay,
To that condition.
all right. Go ahead.
Dave, code section under Highway Business District,
Highway
it,
business.
it lists under special permit, the sale or storage of fuel, comma, lumber, comma, building materials and equipment, comma, contractor's yard. So this
Yeah.
is, I mean, it's an allowable use if it meets the definition. We got, last meeting, prior to Christmas holidays, we got very deep in the weeds on the 30 feet, but not, just understanding, maybe a step back. They're just going to store various contract equipment. What's the use in practical terms for the neighbors? The use in layman's terms.
I said it, I think
That's
we're
okay.
consistent with the Marlborough zoning ordinance, which is storage for contractors and tradesmen of tools, equipment, materials.
Right, in the parking, it's going to be inside the building, or they're going to place, I mean, they're in Marlboro, that's a good example. There are yards that have a whole variety of different, pretty heavy equipment in their yards. Are we going to see that in this parking lot?
The intended use, again, is contractor's yard. The last year's special permit and then the subsequent planning board site plan decision allowed open storage in the parking lot. But the intent is for it to be within the building. Mr. Ferris is at the podium, so I'm sure he
Okay.
can speak more to the use.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for having us and hearing our application before you tonight. And this is my first chance to speak with you all, and I really appreciate being here. I just start by introducing myself. I'm David Ferris, lived in the community about 50 years, and stone's throw from this location on Parkerville Road. Grew up at 17, and part of my paper route was John Henry Knox and Stubtoe Lane and John Matthews, and I used to eat at Andrea Restaurant. If I got an A on my report card, the only A's I ever got was in gym class, but so I know that area pretty well. And we bought that original dilapidated building at the suggestion of the Southborough Economic Development Committee. Just a little history, if you bear with me for a minute, and one of the paper route recipients from me was a guy named Chris Robbins, who's been really spearheading a lot of the development efforts over the last 10 years and the tax rates and whatnot. And he suggested we put a storage facility in there, and I thought it was a good idea. And we eventually came to terms with the prior owner out in New York that had kind of left it dilapidated for about 8 years. It's a functionally obsolete office building with a bridge that'll never lease as office, as a lot of places won't. We inherited the parking lot, and our first outreach to the community was really the direct abutted neighbor, which is a young girl who her uncle went to I went to school with his niece Freiberg, who's on the corner lot, and I just met with her uncle about 2 weeks ago. But in any event, we had made an offer to buy that parcel to make him a lower impacted individual, and he really likes the location and stayed there. The second most directed property is 125 Turnpike, and one of our employees, we bought that, and again, just because it was directly in the backyard or really affected neighbors, tried to really kind of, for lack of a better term, isolate the parking lot to be a developable site. And we really approached it from the perspective of it has a lot of frontage where we could just carve it off, and by right we could come in here and put whatever we really want by just moving another lot line between the building and the parking lot. We're trying to do this in a pretty reasonable and responsible way in seeking relief before this board to put this, what we think is a reasonably sized building. I think on a standalone basis, a much bigger building with a much greater height could go in this location. I don't think it's appropriate, given it literally is on the street I grew up on the opposite side. And so we did the lot line adjustment originally with the intent that the zone allowed us to go over the industrial into res, and ultimately listening to neighbor feedback, and we've tried to isolate issues around the 40B versus this, and try to make some goodwill deposits, frankly, with the neighbors. We have the philosophy in the company that you don't treat people like ATMs. You make as many goodwill deposits as you can in the community, and you hope that when you need to make a withdrawal, you can. And I think in this case, we went and we met with Melissa to the issue that came up earlier on the fence. We did install most of the fence. The only remaining fence line that remains to be installed is on the rear property line. And listening to her feedback, which conflicts with what planning board laid out, we intended to go before planning and suggest that one fence be used for the safety issue around the retention pond, and that line just be carried to give the neighbors their necessary screening, but to meet conservation's request not to have multiple fences on one parcel and restrict animal flow. So that remains to be seen. We respectfully disagree with the planning board chair on a lot of major issues. We sat with this planning board chair at this table a year ago. She was vehemently against 240B projects. She, in my opinion, has respectfully, my counsel is here, you made your opinion. I'd like to speak openly to the committee, and I really feel strongly that what's happening in town recently with the select board meetings, with this meeting, is planning is basically hijacking the respective roles of each of these other committees.
I don't want to veer off into
Zoning.
select board,
Right.
planning board. I mean, I think we're trying to be cooperative here. If you have something, specific to this particular application, that's really what we have to be limited to.
Yeah, we were just really looking for two uses on one lot, and we really want to do it by keeping the lots merged, because we don't want to deal with multiple septic issues. We're picking up a pretty big expense to move the building forward for the neighbors, and we're trying to accommodate the neighbors' concerns by doing that, and that's really what it's about.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Go ahead, you have something, Mike?
No, I'm okay with this.
Doris, did you have something?
Before we move on to a new neighbor's feedback, I do want to make sure we address a 20-foot gap in landscaping. If it indeed is a 20-foot setback, to allow for the landscaping.
Yeah,
I mean, how are we going to, we got to work around that.
Dave, if I may?
Oh, okay.
Yep.
If there's a buffer and a landscaping setback requirement deficiency, that's not in front of us right now. So if the plan is going to the planning board, and then the planning board has something wrong with the plan that needs to either be denied or look for relief, then the plan, then they could be sent back to us for relief. But that's not something that's in front of us to decide. So that's not a direct abutters concern at the moment. That's being brought up by the planning board right now. So that's something I believe that we shouldn't be vetting right now.
Maybe I misunderstood
So
the last.
I think that's something that should be.
I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm just saying that the last gentleman, not necessarily the planning board, is saying he has a concern about the line. That's all.
Yeah, well, maybe I misunderstood that, but I think
that's
I think that's for the plan to be approved by the planning board. The applicant's looking for relief
So
for
that's
the
not,
use.
yeah, so you're saying that's not zoning code.
I mean, we could put conditions on the use, but I don't,
Right.
I don't think, and one other back point on the question about the contractor bay situation.
Yeah.
And what it is and what it isn't. I also don't think that if we sit here and decide and I've seen this done in other towns and other situations. If we sit here and try to decide what can and can't be done in a contractor bay, we could be here for the next 3 months and we would still miss most everything that could possibly take place. So that's my assumption here is if it's being applied for as contractor bays, that, and I guess I'll throw this out to the applicant, it would be consistent or similar to what we approved on Marlborough Road.
That's what I was just about.
That's my assumption when I saw contractor bay. That's what was, I mean, there was relief needed there. We allowed it. So this is a different type of relief altogether, but my understanding it would be the same
Use.
use.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, I'm not going to say I go up and down Marlborough Road every day, but I go down it enough where I don't see what's going on in that contractor bay development being anything
I drive by it every day.
difficult or concerning. It seems like it's contractors having a place to have their place. And as far as bathrooms go, if there's septic that's there, that's allowing for it, then that's, there's the capacity for it. There's not, that would, I think that would be, if it's not, I think that would be a Board of Health issue then, I guess.
Correct, I agree.
But as far as having, facilities, I don't see that as, we approved which I still don't fully understand what it is, but we
The
approved.
condo,
Talk about
The
the
car.
the car condo with the bathrooms, yeah.
Port thing and the old, which the applicant just referenced, the old Andrea's restaurant there. I still don't understand, why the need for, for facilities and bathrooms. I think those did include showers. And I have no idea why that would be needed
And a
for a
kitchen.
car storage place, but it's raising an eyebrow for for a contractor bay. So
Yeah.
that's just my 2 cents here.
Okay. Jamie?
I do think when we say contractor yard by use, and then we don't have a definition of contract yard, I do think we have to put some parameters around there. I agree we can't go through every potential scenario that may come up on that land or with that building, but I heard, we approved the contractor bay, and to me, and maybe it's just me, that's different than yard. Yard to me sounds like it extends beyond what's inside the building.
Well, a yard would typically be the land where someone's going to be stockpiling mulch and
Stone.
having crushed
Right,
stone
so
and that's more of a contractor yard.
But that's what they're asking for.
Is that what we're asking for here?
We're asking for contractor's yard and a building as part of the yard.
So may I ask the clarifying question? In your application, you've asked for a contractor's yard use inside one new building.
Yes.
So just to be clear, you're asking for the use in the building
Yes.
and not outside the building?
Yes.
But it is an undefined term
Correct.
under our bylaw. So we have nothing, I'm just saying this for the board, there is a lack of definition of what would be going on in the building. But it does say inside the building, so I think if there's a condition, we'd want to be clear that it's inside the building. Because that's what they're asking for.
And so would you be, are you recommending then that we put a condition that it's only inside but not in a restriction on what goes on outside?
Well, no, I
Is
think
that,
that,
would
well, I
that,
think,
like-
no, I think I think all that could be outside is parking, like, employee parking or who's there, or,
Is-
can't be, well, again, I'm just reading your guys' application, so that would suggest that there really is not storage of materials outside the building, if I'm reading what you're asking for. But I think it's up to this board to make sure that we're clear if there's a condition.
Right.
I don't think, it's not meant to be unrestricted outside, I'm simply saying their use is being asked for in the building.
I think it's going to be too difficult. I'm with
I
Paul on
don't
this.
mind, I think a general condition could be implemented in this that states something simply like I think it's a very good point then, that it's for the use and storage of contractor material and equipment inside the building.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just reading, and I'm looking at the applicant, I'm reading their application to us, what they're requesting.
I mean, I'm looking at the site plan, and I'm not seeing how that would lend itself to to an external, stockpiling of crushed stone and bark mulch and firewood and in the such, or.
I don't disagree, but I think it's still important.
Yeah, I
clarification.
think, no, I think it's a very good, that's a good point. I don't believe that that's what the applicant is searching for here.
Yeah.
So if that's if something like that needs to be clarified, that I think is pretty easily done. But if we're gonna start to say it can be, this type of material inside, you have wood, but not plastic, then I think we're gonna start, then we're gonna start to get pretty silly. But, I mean, if it's, I'd be comfortable with the condition
Okay.
that states, for the storage inside the building.
Right.
I have a bit of,
Any objection to that, Mr. Carville?
No.
Doris, sorry.
well, I think it's a slippery path. A little bit close to contracting and construction, and I'm just envisioning a whole variety of things happening outside the building. I just don't know if we can get our arms around it. That's.
It is important to note, sort of as a floor to this discussion, like Mr. Ferris began to note, that we've explored dividing the lot further by an A&R plan, which can be done. There's sufficient area and setback room to meet the zoning. And then a contractor's yard, we wouldn't need a special permit for 2 buildings, and we wouldn't need a special permit for 2 uses, right? If one of the uses, like contractor's yard, is by right.
Right.
And so we could withdraw this application and just do that, do an A&R plan. But we think that this could be a better outcome to do it this way. So that's why we're sticking with it. But whether you call it contractor's yard by right or warehousing is another use that can be allowed
Right.
in the industrial zone, we could be in the same place. So this is actually debatably better for the town because it is an opportunity for conditions to be imposed, or at least there to be a description given, like
Right.
the board's talked about.
Okay. Did you,
Sorry. Beth Woodcoff, 3 Schuyler Drive. I was in attendance at the meeting in December. And then this second building that was not in the original plan, Mrs. Cahill was going to use the same phrase, I'm having difficulty wrapping my arms around this, because in the December meeting, it was referred to as a shed, and now it's a yard, and it's unclear exactly what the purpose is going to be. And I guess not being as intimately involved as some of my neighbors, I've been relying on them, and they've done an excellent job, so has Attorney John St. Andre, but I don't understand why we're even entertaining the second building that was not in the original presentation. And Mr. Ferris's attorney in December acknowledged that they didn't begin erection of the fence because they knew they had this in the works. So I'm as a resident and obviously very of Southborough and a butter, I'm very concerned about the direction that this is taking.
we still have just that one building for the contractor's yard, correct? There's not 2.
And I highly doubt that I used the word shed.
That was, I don't agree with it. I think the plan that was submitted, that we reviewed in December, showed pretty much the exact same size building that they've now moved
But it was
forward.
referred to as a shed, so that's, I took notes in that meeting. It was referred to as a shed, and it was referred to as a shed by Mr. Ferris's attorney. And he also
wasn't
acknowledged at that meeting in December that they did not erect the fence, because they knew that they were going to propose a second building. So I'm having difficulty understanding how that. As a matter of fact, I think I stated that I found it disingenuous at the time. I just find it. I'm having trouble grasping why we're even entertaining a second building, and it was referred to as a shed, certainly not a construction yard. And it certainly wasn't discussed that we'd have gravel piles or mulch piles. And it is unclear what the use is going to be. So it's just my perception. I'm
I
just
think-
bringing these issues forward as a concerned citizen and a butter.
No, I understand. Sorry if I'm.
No, please.
I think there is some misunderstanding here, but and hopefully I didn't bring up gravel piles and mulch yards. That's not what the intention is. So I think I brought it up to say that's not what they're doing.
It wasn't clear.
Well, but that's that's me talking right now. That's by no means is that being proposed or in the application. And I don't think there's not a second building being proposed. It's
Correct. There's
it's just one building being proposed. And the square footage of it is now the same as it was in December, just moved. So if somehow or another, if I don't recall shed being used, but I mean, I'm looking at a building that size, and I'm not thinking shed by any means, so.
Well, that was my impression too in December. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and certainly any of my neighbors can correct me and help me understand, that this contractor's building was not in the original proposal. Just redoing the original dilapidated building, as it was referred to. And I agree with that depiction.
So the original proposal for the main building, for the current Beehive building.
Yeah, that was a separate.
Yeah,
It was that
last
building,
year.
and then there's the 240B building. But I never was made aware, or under the impression that this contractor's building was never in the original proposal. And now, if you look at,
When you
look
say
at the
original
depiction-
proposal, could you just clarify what you mean by that?
the proposal from Mr. St. Andre, can you help me out a little bit?
Right, correct, that was the hearing we had, that was over a year ago. Yeah. Correct, right, there wasn't, agreed. I don't know that that's necessarily something that,
Well, my last point would be, when you look at the rendering,
Yeah.
it looks like that, though the builder agreed to put it all in the industrial zone, it's right up against the line.
Yes, it is.
And so
We
where's the
acknowledge that.
where's the 20-foot setback that he needs to plant landscaping? How's that going to happen if he's right up
Right.
against the residential line?
okay, point taken, thank you.
Thank you.
That's the original.
This is the original submission, correct?
Contract.
Well, original from December.
December.
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
the first.
Right.
Okay.
Maybe talking about process for a second would be helpful. This is what the applicant's going to do after this board hopefully issues its decision on the requested special permit. The applicant is going to, at Ms. Danza's suggestion, return to the Conservation Commission to make sure that they're happy with the revised notice of intent and order of conditions, which I think is going to mean further for peer review by both the Conservation Commission's civil engineer and a wetland scientist, just looking at it from that commission and the town's perspective. Also, the applicant is going to have clearer drawings done that will meet site plan review by the planning board. And as I know that Chair Luttrell and the town planner want, we will have a pre-application meeting with them, where we'll have all the sheets in front of us, and they're going to give us the list, and they're going to say, you have a building that is within a 20-foot landscape buffer setback, so revise that. And we'll see their feedback, and we'll have the drawings revised within reason, and then we'll make the actual filing for site plan. And then it will go through their entire process, just like the self-storage building
Right.
we did a year ago.
And with respect to any buffer, part of the whole project has been moved back
30 feet.
Correct.
30 feet at a great expense.
And we think we're still right on where we were at the hearing on December 20th by saying that, as the chair referenced earlier tonight, the less intensive use under the Southborough zoning bylaw may extend 30 feet into the more restrictive zone. So we think that what you're looking at here should be approved and is legal under the town's zoning bylaw. That being said, as Mr. Ferris said, the applicant has undertaken the goodwill gesture of, at $250,000 of septic rearranging expense, moving the building north entirely within the industrial zone.
Yeah.
Which we thought addressed all the comments that came from Attorney St. Andre and all of his clients who all spoke, and this board's concerns.
Yep. Yeah, if I may, I think you do have it correct here. And I think it is we need to focus on what is the use. I think a lot of the concerns are something that certainly can come up under site plan review, so I'm generally in agreement with what you're saying. Sorry, you have something?
Yeah, just two more quick points to the point just made. The building was moved because I don't think it was going to get past zoning as it was previously proposed. That's why it was moved.
Well, I would only say that
necessarily
we
as-
discussed in detail last meeting that we wanted the applicants to meet with the abutters through Mr. St. Andre. So I'm taking it as a matter of faith that they did that because as a result of meeting with Mr. St. Andre.
Well, but we didn't ask them to move the building per se. We were trying to point out that, hey, it doesn't look like it would pass zoning as previously proposed.
Okay.
And then the second point, just to back up Beth on this, when I got the original notice on this proposal in front of you today, it was a notice that came from Concom, and it specified a second building, a second structure, a contractor's yard shed, just as a matter of fact.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
It's a big shed.
all right. And is there anybody on Zoom?
I just want to, just because I know there's been a lot of questions. I'm looking at this, this is the current plan that was submitted.
Yep.
There is no other structure than what's being listed right there, other than the proposed 240 by 60. There's no additional shed or structure that's being proposed. Am I?
Correct, right? I
just
mean, I think we're comparing to the December meeting,
That's it.
right? Yeah.
There's no change with respect to, there's no additional building other than right here.
And the pre-existing building, which is self-storage.
Right.
Oh, that one.
where-
Right, and that was a separate hearing.
Nope, I just wanted to be
Okay.
crystal
All right.
clear on that. Just because there's honestly some genuine confusion.
Yeah,
So,
understood.
There's no shed.
Right, there's just, well,
Just
the
this.
contractor's yard
Contractor's
building
yard
is what
building.
I think they're referring to as the shed. So
Okay.
we have somebody on Zoom who wants to participate, so why don't we go ahead?
Yes, Mark Davis, 13 Schuyler Drive. Mark Davis, 13 Schuyler Drive.
Yep, go ahead.
I raised some objections in the last meeting, and I won't go down the 30-foot push into the residential land. He's corrected that. I still am very, very concerned about a 50-foot setback for a commercial building on residential land. This has never been done in this town. And if you approve this plan, which he is claiming as of right, he's not asking for any waivers, then you are giving every property owner in an industrial zone the ability to push their buildings onto lot lines as long as they control the land on the other side of the lot line. This is pushing those buildings back against residential and other zoning areas. In the plan you have up on your screen, look at Andy Lane's old existing 3-story building. He's still 50 feet to the zoning line. Here's the quandary. His building, as he shows it, doesn't meet building codes. He needs an egress door off the back of the building. It needs to be handicapped accessed. That walkway that he's going to have to build has to be level for handicapped access the whole length of that building. All of those activities are now on residential land. Commercial walkways, commercial driveways, lighting that he's going to have to put back there are not permitted uses in residential land. Now, you can sit and say, well, that's detail we don't usually get into, but look at the quandary that you're putting the planning board in. Suddenly, he's got uses that need to be there by the building codes, but we're not talking about them here. There is a reason 50-foot setbacks in an industrial zone belong in industrial land. And there are certain uses that we do look for waivers, such as loading docks, such as driveways, such as doors and walkways to get within that buffer area. No one's objecting to that. But allowing a building as of right to sit on the zoning line and push all these uses onto residential land is not correct. You can go into and you can look at it. 174-8A talks about uses within a zone. And the 50-foot setback is an appurtenant use to the industrial use. On his theory, somebody could go in on a residential portion and put their setback on the industrial portion if they happen to own both. And what you effectively are allowing to happen is more intensive development on the industrial side, and if it works the reverse, more intensive development, as of right, on the residential side. It's not a permitted use. Secondly, the 20-foot buffer that the planning board chairman talked about is in the codes. Right on Middle Road, we have a contractor's yard, of all things, being developed. The transfer station is in residential land. There still needs to be a buffer between the industrial and the residential. And that developer, from what I've seen, is going to comply, even if the use is different with the transfer station. How can you put the planning board in the position of now eliminating the ability to put that buffer on it's supposed to be on the industrial portion. They can't swing it on the residential portion. That's not what's permitted. The third issue I have is this whole idea that he's asking for a second use of a contractor yard. That's okay, but that's not what we're talking about here. There is no such thing as a contractor's yard building in our zoning. It is not a permitted use. I suggest he call it a warehouse. That way, we are not in a position that 4 years from now, he sells it to somebody else, and gee, he has a use of a contractor yard, and up pop those mulch piles, up pop everything else. It's not a permitted use. Call the building what it should be called, which is a warehouse. Then you're not attributing other uses that down the road somebody else could construe to mean something entirely different. I have worked for a company with a contractor's yard. I was in charge of it. We don't want those uses here. If it's a warehouse building, that's a totally different ballgame, and it's as of right. I don't understand why we're calling this a contractor's yard and walking down that path. So I have 3 zoning objections. 1, the 50 feet needs to be in the industrial zone, as every other owner in this town has complied. And somebody correct me if I'm wrong. You're allowing an industrial building to be 50 feet closer to whatever zone it impacts. And it's going to happen, if it's as of right here, it's as of right all over town. 2, you're taking away the power of the planning board on their 20-foot buffer, which may not be as important in this particular case, but is important all across town to, again, keep industrial uses on industrial sites and residential uses on residential sites. And then the third issue is just the strange use of a contractor's yard building. That's not what he's asking for. He's asking for a second use. And that use is called a contractor's yard. That's totally different. He can say it won't happen, but it will. There was a contractor's yard building down on, I think it's Corderville Road. And every morning, there were 40 cars at least of employees that came there, dropped their vehicles off, and then all went and left the yard with their equipment. What was stored in that yard was all the things you would expect of a landscaping contractor yard. That's what you're giving this owner. He can tell you, well, that's not what I intend to do. But no, we should call it a warehouse building. It's totally different than what he's doing in the adjoining building. So I hope I've made my objections clear. These are zoning issues, and we shouldn't be going down a path where we're allowing industrial uses to creep closer to residential. There's a reason for those setbacks, and we should honor that commitment, and that's what the zoning says. If you go to the residential side, residential has its own setbacks, but a 50-foot commercial setback isn't listed in the residential. Therefore, it's not a permitted use there. So we're violating it in both directions. He is not asking for a waiver. He's as of right. And that's not correct.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I see it as being in the industrial zone. Clearly, they moved it there. I understand it's abutting. Jamie, you had something?
Yeah, I completely understand what the caller was saying. I think the only thing I had issue with is if we approve this as it, or with the setback issue, we approve that everywhere around town from now until forever, and I don't see it that way. I think everyone's gonna have, in a similar situation, is gonna have to come before this board, and there's always distinct cases, right? I do think precedent matters, so I don't disagree with that, but this idea that if we approve it now, well, now it's always gonna be this way is just not how I see it.
Well,
I agree with that.
So that's one thing. And then I had two other things. One was going back, I'm sorry, I forget the woman's name, but about the one building versus two building. I think the confusion was that she was saying with the initial request for the storage unit, it was only one building. I don't think she was saying for this application
Correct.
we're looking at that it's now two buildings, and that was never asked. So I think that's one distinction to make. I had one other thought, but now I lost it. I don't know. You'll have to come back to me. Oh, I know what it was. Sorry. I agree with this definition of contractor's yard being very confusing, and we're asking for a second use, which is what this special permit's asking us to allow. Why isn't it called, and this might be me not knowing the definition, but why are we not just calling it another storage building? That's essentially what it is, right? It's storing material that contractors are going to use. Yes? No?
Could be.
I mean, I think it's kind of semantics, yeah. If you're just, if you're calling it a contractor's storage units, I guess that might be
Right.
same
Yes.
type of.
That's an allowable use, but that's not the application. That's under special permit also. A storage and equipment.
Right, but it wouldn't be a
Materials.
second use, right? There's already that use on the lot.
Well, but, the first use is self-storage, right? This is more, again, contractors.
Yeah.
yard.
No,
I
no.
agree.
I think the
No,
statement is
Storage and material
storage of
equipment.
fuel, lumber, building materials, and equipment.
So, I mean, it
Contractor's
could
yard.
be,
But
I mean-
I think one way to help here would be for us to do what Paul thought we couldn't do, is try to address that by stating it's intended to be inside the building and not
And
out in the
I
yard.
think I can help that with just a key word, so I just, getting a legal definition. Construction yard means the land used for the storage of materials incidental to the operation of construction contractors, building contractors' establishment. What we don't, I think, collectively want is there to be a massive space for materials.
Correct.
So the key word there is incidental, as opposed to, we're going to be,
Let me ask a question for you, maybe you might know better too. Currently, if nothing was built, if nothing was allowed, no relief is given, there's a yard there that is zoned industrial, that the owner could be stockpiling crushed stone and mulch and firewood this afternoon if he wanted to by right?
I believe that's probably the case, yeah.
yeah, well, exactly.
So, I mean,
So,
yeah.
to me, and this is the way I think of a lot of these things that have come before us for the town here. To step back further, if a use is being asked for that is going to cause less impact on traffic and tie up on Route 9 and as such, I think that's a plus.
Right.
If a use like this is going to be internal, I understand there's going to be a building that's not too architecturally significant constructed, but if the use is all going to, the fundamental request is for the use to be internal, to me that creates less of a nuisance to the.
Exactly.
Now, I don't live in this neighborhood, but that would create less of a. But things have been done in my backyard where I'm like, oh, that creates less of a nuisance than could have been something else. So, I'm very sympathetic to what abutters feel and think, but I'm thinking from public safety standpoint, from general Southborough traffic issues, and then just general. Do you want to drive down Route 9 and see? Do you want to see what someone referenced? Do you want to see a big backhoe making a doing a pile of
Crushed rock.
Crushed stone, yeah.
crushed stone, or piling up salt for
Right.
highway maintenance
Understood.
or whatever, like that's, and I believe that's something that could be like currently done on the site by right.
Well, currently, the property parking lot is in great disrepair. It's breaking up. I'm not an environmentalist, but that has to be a problem in itself.
Right.
The lighting is falling.
But I don't,
And that, I mean, we're
that's-
gonna
that's-
have, but, it'd be the least amount of use
Okay.
of the property. I mean, they're just trying to develop the property.
I know, I'm just
Yeah.
saying as we're, so I think I go back to the point that you guys were making, that if it's something that we're considering, that that does have language that say this is, I don't know how to articulate it, but it does have its, it's as, for internal use storage, not
Right.
external
I think
use
we can,
storage, and
I think
Yeah.
we should take a crack
and
at that.
I think that would, I don't know, I just think that would be a
Yeah,
Verbiage like
cleaner
primary
use of
use.
the property.
right.
Primary use.
Do you have something different? We've been at this for a while now. If you have something different to bring, I'm willing to listen to it. If it's to reemphasize a previous point.
Really, just two quick things. So Eric Glazer, 9 Skylar Drive. The point around semantics, I think semantics are important, and I'm not trying to be argumentative, but if there's definitions, then just follow the definition. But at the end of the day, we appreciated the developers moving the building, and we're trying to figure out, what are you going to do with it? But if there are defined uses for these things based on the description, then semantics, I would argue, clearly are important. The question I would want to leave with the board, and maybe it's something to follow up with town council, the zoning thing to me is still confusing, because if there is zoning for 50 feet versus not, why is it or is it not applicable here? Maybe it's worth getting another opinion on that, because there still seems to be some confusion, because I'm confused.
I would agree. Because to me, the 50-foot setback clearly goes to a property line. I think having a zoning line does confuse things a bit. However, when it comes to use, I do think, some of the concerns we could address in conditions here maybe some of the language you use when we talk about contractor's yard, just to make it clear, the intent is for it to be storage, yeah, right, storage within the building and not building materials stored around the yard, right? Okay.
Make a motion to close the public hearing?
Second it.
Okay, a motion,
One comment to make, if I could, it's on a related but somewhat different subject. John St. Andre again. If the board is considering granting the permit and placing conditions on the permit, would the board consider a statement in its decision that the restrictions that are in place now are not being affected by the board's decision? And the reason why I say that is because the contractor's building, the lot that it's on is residential. There are restrictions that are in place for that residential part of the lot, which I don't think are being violated, but I don't want anyone to say 10 or 15 years from now, oh yeah, those restrictions were eliminated when this special permit was granted. So if the board could say something that it's not eliminating the restrictions that are currently in place, I think that would make a big difference to us.
okay, so the restrictions currently in place on the residential lot will not be eliminated or
Correct.
affected?
The residential portion
Residential
of
portion.
the lot, right.
Okay,
Exactly.
thank you.
Dave,
Thank you.
maybe have the applicant comment on that too, to make sure
Yeah.
it's,
The concern with that is, I think it runs afoul of the concern that the board itself raised a few weeks ago, which is blurring different proposals. I think them asking for that is them trying to get ahead of another potentially future proposal, as opposed to this decision, I think, can speak to the matter.
What are the restrictions that would concern you going forward that are on the residential portion of the lot?
A blanket restriction that this decision doesn't touch those. This decision does not need to speak to those at all. Nothing that is done here tonight is going to affect those. It's just, with respect, I think belt and suspenders that's being sought by the abutters attorney.
Okay, thank you.
For my own knowledge, can we clarify what residential restrictions are we specifically talking about?
Right, that's what I'm trying to get at.
yeah, because I'd be
Could you address those?
uncomfortable putting in language that says it doesn't affect
Right.
restrictions if I don't know what restrictions are.
There are at least 4 restrictions that are in play here. 3 of them were described in the special permit that was granted to...
Oh, excuse me, sir, if they're just asking you to go to the microphone there.
Okay.
The restrictions that are being talked about here were contained in the 1990 special permit that was granted to Leaf Systems when the entire lot, the residential portion of the lot was intact. One of the restrictions was there would be no building on the residential lot. There would be no access to the residential lot from Parkerville Road, and that there would be a buffer zone. There you go, see, there it is up on the board now. And my concern is that the decision today does affect a portion of the residential lot that existed when those restrictions were put in place. So I don't see what the problem would be making a statement that those restrictions are still in effect, or this decision is not intended to affect those decisions or eliminate them or something, so that we know that those restrictions still apply. If they're going to be removed later on, that's another topic, but I don't want this decision to be construed that somehow these restrictions are removed.
I'm not an attorney, but if it's expressed and implied that if it's not requested, that it's not changing anything.
Exactly.
Again, I'm not an attorney.
Right.
I'll let the attorneys, but.
My take on it would be is that you are talking about the residential lot. We're ruling on what they're doing in the industrial part of it. So as far as I'm concerned, whatever we do
Doesn't affect.
doesn't affect the residential
Yeah.
lot.
But you
And the
actually
special,
just,
and whatever was agreed to in the 1990 decision applies just as much
Well,
today as,
I would be happy if the minutes of tonight's meeting reflect the board's understanding and belief that that is the case. Then we'll be able to look back and say, hey, this is what the board was thinking. Those restrictions are still in effect and not, and I understand that.
it's probably reasonable to, I want to say, make it a finding, right? That was what, that was agreed in the 1990 special permit. It's just a finding, right? We do other things, like we say it's located in this zone, et cetera. I don't see a problem saying one of the findings is something along those lines.
Mr.
That
Chairman, I
would be
say
helpful.
let's talk about
and
that.
make it clear for us.
Okay.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
I will second that motion.
Okay, motion to close the public hearing has been made and seconded. All in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Doug?
Am I sitting on this one? I don't know if I'm sitting on this one.
You were,
Okay, all right.
It's the people who sat last
Aye,
time.
close, yeah.
Aye.
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 aye. Okay, that closes the public part of the meeting. So I think where we are is we want to figure out how we can, I think we know we want to have a condition on use, which is really what it's about, to really make sure that what we're talking about is a construction yard inside a building, however we can phrase that. Now, I don't know if we still have concerns regarding the line when it comes to the zoning. I mean, to me, the setbacks are really about property lines.
Property lines,
I don't see them
exactly.
being about a zoning line.
I couldn't agree more.
So I don't know about, I feel a little bit less concerned about that. I think some of the issues that were brought up regarding the buffering, again, that's part, to me, of site plan review that can go before the planning board. I don't think it's an undue hardship on the planning board to do that. I think that's part of what they do. They're more constructed to look at things like that. So I don't know what other concerns we have as a board.
I mean, I agree with what you just said, yes. I guess we do somehow or another need to get some language constructed, and I said I'll defer to you two that probably more eloquently stated that it's, contractor use inside.
Right, right.
I know there's, I don't know if we need to mention it in any type of decision, but I think it's something that is ongoing and pending, but the fence, the lighting, no other, egress or access onto Parkerville, which isn't showing it on the site plan anyways.
But again,
and-
Paul, that was part of that 1990 finding, right? The special permit that said no egress onto Parker.
Right, but I know it's was brought up
Yeah,
initially, back in December, was brought
I
up,
mean,
was brought up again
it probably
tonight.
doesn't hurt.
It's not showing it on the site plan, so that's why, if it's not being asked for, it's not showing it, then I don't think we need to say it.
Oh, okay.
It's
All right.
like saying you can't build a, 100-foot skyscraper there in the future. Like, it's not what they're asking for right
Okay,
now, so.
okay.
I misunderstood. I thought you were asking.
I thought you were asking to put it, yeah.
No. I'm saying, like,
Okay.
I think that those items will be,
Okay,
are
okay.
already in place and will be part of what is, I assume, currently in front of, or to be in front of the planning board, so,
Right, okay.
for the site review and all that
Now,
stuff.
so you weren't on the original one. I don't have, it's not I think it just means you probably don't vote on this? Because Doug did sit, you sat on it originally, correct, Doug? Yeah. Yeah. Not that, I think it's okay for him to participate the way he has. He just
Yeah,
can't vote.
just don't vote.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I have,
Doris?
I have a.
oh, sorry, go
okay,
ahead,
I can
Doris.
go. On the comment with the finding, in general, I'm okay with putting a finding down about the previous covenant, but the applicant was in total disagreement whether or not that covenant was enforceable. So if we're doing a finding in one regard, and I know legal counsel said that the special permit is still enforceable.
Correct.
The client was very clear, or the applicant was very clear, they were in entire disagreement that this fell under Mass General Law, that this covenant has indeed expired. I looked, actually I dug a little pretty far into that rabbit hole, so I'm okay with a finding, and is it the same both directions? Because the applicant doesn't agree. I wouldn't want to come off saying I'm agreeing on that, on whether that covenant was enforceable.
I think, yeah, I don't
wanna get
know
into
that we
whether
need to, I'm suggesting we just state that was in the 1990 special permit. We
Very-
don't need to really take a position.
I don't
on
want to have any position
No,
on
I don't
that.
think we should, because I think
because-
you've stated it pretty clearly.
Right, so that's, I
Our
have,
legal counsel said special permit
Right.
always applies, so.
right, and I think it's, we're granting a permit on the industrial side
Correct.
of the
I agree.
line,
Right.
and it's the lot line, which on hearing, I'm in agreement with the lot line, and are we 50 feet from the lot line? I didn't hear an answer on that, but,
I think that's not a problem,
yeah, okay, all right, that's what I think too. That was it, it was just my comment on the finding, making
Okay. Jamie?
I honestly don't know if this is necessary, but I thought I'd bring it to the board, is I know that one of the abutters was concerned about precedent this could set going forward where residential and industrial lines meet. And I don't know if we just want to state that the applicant worked with the abutters to move the building and, there was some hardship for them to do that, to get it within the industrial zone.
Right.
To just kind of assuage maybe any precedent fear that this is, I don't know if it's necessary. It's just something I was thinking about.
Precedent has come up before, and I'm a little bit dismissive of it. I know it's an important legal theory, but when it comes to the board, I mean, you could say that anybody that wants to have more than a three-car garage in town can always cite precedent. Hey, if somebody else has it. And I've sat on boards where we've rejected it. So, and we also had a concern a few years ago about, an application on Parkerville, and we were worried everybody in town was going to come to us with a non-conforming lot, and we were going to let it go, and that hasn't happened. So I don't want to be, I guess dismissive isn't the right word. I'm just not, this board has the right to review every single application on its merits. And the applicant has the right to say, well, hey, this is what you did in the past, and it's fair. But as a board, we have a right to decide on every individual application on its own merits. So I'm less concerned, I'll just say that.
Okay.
Doug?
So just point of clarification, so we're voting on to allow a use,
Correct.
right? Or two uses on one lot, right?
What's the way it's,
Yep, however it's phrased.
let's be careful. what
Yeah, just want to,
we're
just,
saying here.
are we approving the location of the building as well, specifically?
No, we're
No,
not.
because that would
Because
be the
that would be
planning
site
board's role.
plan review.
So I'm just saying if the applicant is wrong in their interpretation of the setback with the zone line, well, that's up for planning board to decide. I'm just putting it out there, right? I mean, I think the setback is from the property line, right? Or in fact, the 20-foot landscape buffer, those are planning board issues, right? All they're here for us to say, they're looking for two buildings, or two uses, I guess, or two buildings on one lot. Are we approving anything else besides that specific request?
Maybe, Doug, but to your point is that we're approving second use,
It's,
not, that is
No.
purely within the industrial portion of the lot.
Yeah, within the industrial portion of the
yeah.
lot.
the.
Or was it, that's why I'm just want to clarify what we're actually going to be, what's the,
It's to allow two buildings and two uses on a single lot.
yeah. And the location of that building specifically?
No, there's
No,
nothing about, in the
two buildings,
permit
okay, yep.
about that, because that does fall under site plan review.
Okay. Just for me.
So we don't want to put a condition in that decision?
On
or
location?
That it needs to be located within the industrial zone, or?
I'm okay with that. I just was more
I
just
think we could,
specifically that. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
probably safe. I would
think
maybe
we should
stay
put
away
it-
from
Yeah.
setbacks. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to get involved in
That's fine.
setbacks,
So
but,
it's
I mean,
And I'm kind of a slave to, the petitioner has put forward a special permit request for 2 uses and 2 buildings on 1 lot. They've sent us a proposed plan on which we are relying on basing that decision tonight. To
That's-
me, if we wanted to add a condition, we would say potentially, make a motion to accept the applicant's special permit for 2 uses and 2 buildings on 1 lot, provided that such second use of a contractor's yards is expressly limited to incidental use.
I like the way that sounds.
And do you feel like we need to add that located entirely within the industrial zone condition as well?
I don't think it hurts.
Yeah, I don't think
I
it
don't
hurts.
think it hurts.
Honestly. And I think the incidental use should include inside.
The building.
Incidental use.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yes,
Perfect.
Yeah.
I would agree with all of those
You have all that?
3.
That's great.
All right, let's
I'm
give
good.
our
Incidental
admin
within the building, all, proper.
Yeah.
In
In the industrial zone.
Agreed, yeah.
That way there's no spillover.
Mr. Chair,
Mm,
if you're
We-
already
we-
hearing from me.
We can't,
Can't.
can't.
We did close the public hearing.
So, I don't know, do we need to touch upon anything else? Is there any other issues that anyone else sees or wants to address?
I don't have any concerns. No, I mean, if, if you could reset what you said, then,
Can I make sure that I have this? I want to make sure I have the language right. To allow 2 uses and 2 buildings on 1 lot, provided the second use of the contractor's yard building is expressly limited to interior incidental use within the industrial zone.
I don't
The
fully
sound.
understand what incidental means, but I'll defer to you. I'll defer to a,
When I pulled
that a-
up
is that an okay
contractor's
term?
yard,
that was from what you pulled.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
And again, I'm not married to that.
I'm not married.
I just don't understand, I don't know what incidental.
Laura, could you restate start from the top? I know it's that 3 words in there.
Provided second use is,
Okay, so 2 uses and 2 buildings on 1 lot,
Yep.
provided that the second use of the contractor's yard building is expressly limited to interior incidental use within the industrial zone.
That doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
That's
Well,
why I'm
well,
glad you're here.
what the term you found though, it was what, building materials incidental to,
The contractor's use.
Do-
But again, I'm
Yeah.
not married to that.
Should we say something about, I
Should
don't
it-
know if storage is the right word, but
so
Or
should
we
it
could just drop it.
limited to interior storage of building materials?
I don't, however you said it first sounded good, with just the,
The internal.
kind of like from the definition of what it was, like that seems
I
adequate.
think the incidental is throwing us off a bit.
Okay, so let's drop the incidental.
So should it just be
interior.
more or less what she said, limited to interior storage of building materials
Typical,
and equipment?
contractor.
Because I think
Consistent.
equipment is part of
Consistent
it.
with
Yeah.
contractor bay use.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about that? That sounds very legally official, right?
Expressly limited to
Interior
interior
storage
storage
I don't know if
of
it gets us the
building
traction
materials
you're
and
thinking you're
equipment.
We're saying the same
Because
thing.
they might
Yeah.
store equipment there.
That's what I mean.
I don't mean to be a drag. Could you state that again? Maybe I could.
Because I'm trying to make sure I have it right.
Yeah.
So, provided the second use of the contractor's yard building is expressly limited to interior storage of building materials and equipment, and that's where I lost it.
Oh,
Related to.
within the
contract-
buildings, is that what you're
Well,
saying?
but interior, I think implies.
You think interior?
Should we, I think we're getting into like we talked before, we're over defining it. I mean,
Yeah.
That was
the
my
The applicant
concern.
has asked for a contractor's yard. I think what we're saying, it has to be interior
Yeah,
to the building, and the building needs to be wholly located in the industrial zone.
yes.
There it is.
And
Just
located-
leave it
There we
like
go.
that.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
I'm just gonna let it go.
That's-
Okay.
Okay.
Hang on. Okay. So 2 uses and 2 buildings on 1 lot, provided that the second use of the contractor's yard building is interior and wholly in the industrial zone.
Okay,
Good?
all right. Let's say that that's Paul's proposal. And who wants the second?
That was my proposal for sure.
Yeah, because he can't vote.
Unambiguous.
So I'm not seconding my own proposal, you're saying?
No, we need
Okay.
somebody else to second.
Okay, that's a good idea.
I'm seconding Paul's proposal.
Okay. All right, motion has been made to accept as written with the condition as read back by our admin. All in favor, respond with aye. Opposed, nay. Doug?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Doris?
Aye.
Aye. Williams, aye. Okay, thank you. Thanks.
So this morning, so I had a Boys and Girls Club board meeting this evening, but this morning, we're trying to build a new teen center. So this morning, I met with the town, planner, architect. So that, I'm on the building committee because apparently they think I know what I'm doing about building.
I have to.
And so like some of the discussions and legalities are coming up and the architect, as far as like when we still have
Yes,
to go for.
we're going to do a 5-minute
permits,
recess.
Trying to avoid the
Come
Cape
back.
Cod.
We only have
Like, well,
one
do you have an
more.
attorney
5-minute recess.
on board?
Thank you.
Approved.
Sounds good.
And.
No. Yeah, yep, we are. Well, so the only item we have left on the agenda, and I apologize that it's
Are we back
gotten
on?
to,
We're back on.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
we've gotten
You're good?
to where we are. But I did take a look, and I did steal some of, I don't know, do you want to, I don't know if that's something you can,
I can
does
share.
it help to
Yeah.
share?
Yeah.
Please.
I wanted to be
I'll do-
clear, I don't know if, I know I only sent it today, but I added just the items in italics. And we can look at that first. The other thing I'm questioning is whether, if we need to put it in two separate places or putting in one place is sufficient.
That's entirely up to you guys, right?
So,
So this
So-
is, I'm going to highlight.
yeah, oh, it doesn't, wow.
Just
Yeah,
hang on.
yeah, she's got it, unless otherwise designated by.
Oh, my-
Oh,
Goo- I'm sorry, I'm going to make you all nauseous for a second. Where are we? Oh, gosh.
yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
All right, here we go. So I'm going to highlight what David added.
This is what I, so take a second to digest it.
It's okay to me.
Does
Grant
rights,
or end of appeal period, maybe?
We had that discussion
last
meeting, didn't we?
Yeah, so the date of grant is the date that it's certified by the town clerk.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yes, no, I ran that by
I just-
town council because I
just
wanted to make sure.
double-check that.
and from a legal standpoint, exercised would mean started at least?
I think so.
Yeah,
That's,
I think that's,
doesn't mean you need to be completed, just,
No.
just
Undertaken.
so that's exercised, or that's, okay.
and
That-
that is taken specifically from other language we have, correct, I believe?
yes, so that is taken directly from the language that we have in the bylaw for variances in 174-25. So it just kind of mirrors that language.
Yeah, this looks fine to me.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think
So-
it's fair, it's balanced, and
Does it, and I think it kind of captures what we talked, because we did say we want to have the ability to grant an extension, but I think, Doug, you really talked about for cause, right?
well, no, I think you also left it open too, where in a good way. An extension will be granted for good cause and/or at the discretion of this,
Right.
which I think is good, because it gives,
People are just idiots.
yeah. Something could have happened, that's happenstance, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so,
I forgot to do this.
but 2 years is a very fair time frame for them to do something. And then if something happened, then 30 days before it expires, they just got to be before us.
Right.
Otherwise, they got to start the process again. I mean, I think that's fair.
Okay.
And if they don't start something in the 1-year extension, then they should be coming back and starting over
Right.
again.
I don't know if anybody else had any comments, but the only other, I was interpreting what you wrote as we wanted to put it in two sections, but I think, I think it only needs to be in one, right? On 174.9, the special.
Yeah.
Because that kind of covers special permits.
Right, so 174-9 is special permit requirements in general, so that kind of covers like all special permits, both from us and the planning board. I wasn't sure if you guys also wanted to put it in 174-25, because in 174-25, we also have the expiration language for variances.
Oh, do we?
But the
Okay.
variances are specific to ZBA, which is
Right.
why it's under the ZBA
Okay.
section.
Okay. Yeah, and 174.25 is about ZBA
The zoning
special
board of
permits.
appeals.
Yeah, it seems to me I'm going to say I think it's okay just in the first one.
Just a 9.
What do you guys have any concerns?
I mean, unless I think both for clarity could be helpful,
Yeah.
but, because there are, our authority is out of both of those technically, correct? So just for clarity, but when I don't, beyond town council saying you only need it in one place or two, I don't
Okay.
have a strong feeling, but that way it's just clear, it's in both sections. That's
Okay.
my personal opinion, though.
I mean, I think that's the next thing to do, is if we're okay with it, I'm going to forward it to town council for their, because I think he needs to review anything that's going.
Yeah, so town council can review it. There also needs to be a public hearing with planning board because it's a change to the zoning bylaw.
Okay.
So that'll happen. We just need to submit the final warrant language to Mark Purple by January 26th.
Okay.
So this is our last meeting before
Yeah.
that.
And I would just say more clarity too, because I think the reason why we're doing this is that if we do not state it, then it defaults to a 3 years term. That's my understanding.
So as it stands right now,
Or as
what
a
we
question.
have is there's language that I put in the decision, regardless of whether it's special permit or variance, that states the process for appeals and then
Okay.
also states the expiration date. So when we first talked about this, I had asked town council if it was okay if we put language in there that said the special permit will lapse after 2 years, even if it's not strictly within the bylaw, and he was fine with that.
Okay.
So that language is in the decisions right now. So.
Okay. So
just-
it's
it was
bit
kinda
belt
like
and
to
suspenders.
fill the gap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think the language is good as David, you've written it, and I'm good with it being in both places and let town council opine from there.
Okay. All right.
Unless someone said the objections, but.
Any other opinions on
That's
that?
good. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
great.
Cool.
Not germane to this topic, but when you're writing all those things, the little legal, the little subchapter, the little squiggle, how do you make that?
How do you do that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is there like,
It's in the symbol.
it's in a special symbol thing?
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't- I was going to say, I copied and
You can
pasted
assign
it.
it, you know, like the buttons at the top of the keyboard, that's like F1, F2, F3.
Oh.
You can assign a symbol, so you don't have to
So you don't have to go to,
Yeah.
not that I'm gonna be writing any, I've always just kind of wondered, like, where the keyboard is
I
at?
had to do that. I never knew I could assign a keyboard. So I wish I had known that about 25 years ago.
Yeah, you can do that.
Oh, my God.
Insert,
Yeah.
ding, copy, paste,
Yeah.
ding.
It's one of those things I've always wondered, like,
All right.
you know.
And
Right, Paul.
that was the, that was,
There are all sorts of symbols, if you go into that.
Do you want me to go over that? And then March, there was something you.
oh, yeah. So just some administrative stuff. What, next meeting is what?
So next meeting's February 6th. It's 120 Turnpike, 40B. We had
fun stuff.
wanted to have it here, but that is the same night as the select board meeting, so it will be at the Public Safety Building instead.
And you know where that
I
is?
like that
What
place.
day
Your
is
favorite
it?
building.
Yeah,
February
that's a
6th.
nice, I like it.
February
I feel
6th.
comfortable there.
Tuesday.
Is that okay?
Yeah, no, because I leave the 7th, so.
No, just
Perfect timing.
Do they
Yeah.
paint the walls
I
in your
think
new
we
color?
probably did it.
Has it always been this color?
Oh, probably.
I don't know about you guys. but
And
I
so
like
that's
the
at 7 or 7:30?
7 o'clock.
Do you feel like it's harder to hear
Here we're like,
Yes.
up here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some strange acoustics
There's
going
some
on in there.
strange acoustics. It was harder for me to hear. I was fine hearing the audience. But
Yeah.
Like Doug, I could hear, but the board was.
Oh, that's
kind of
weird.
challenging. I also have hearing issues, but not typically on this side.
facility. And
Yeah.
we're just hearing one application
So that's just the 40B
only.
only.
And
And
which,
where is
Piece
it?
of cake.
Public safety.
and which one is this? The one I am sitting on, the one I'm not
Yes,
sitting
the
on?
one you are sitting
The
on.
one I am sitting on.
Yes.
Central got, stayed. There we go. I had the right.
Why aren't you on Park Central?
He refused himself.
What the hell?
He's gonna tell us why.
I recused
too late to
myself.
You refused, you're not on Park Central, right?
I'm not on Park
There
Central.
may be some updates, so
Should we
We'll keep an
close
eye on
this
it.
meeting
You
before?
don't have to tell me.
Do we need to close the meeting? Or did we do that?
Oh,
we
not
done?
yet. Really quick, February 28th is our regularly scheduled meeting.
Yeah.
We have no applications. Hooray. Up to you. If you guys want to keep it, we do need to approve Park Central minutes at some point because we'll be past the 45 days to approve those by the time the next meeting is for that. And
Can we
then
do it the 6th?
we can do it the 6th.
Yeah, let's do the 6th.
If you're okay with that.
That's our next meeting.
That's
We're
the
gonna
other
approve.
40
Just to approve minutes.
Okay.
And then we have the 120 Turnpike late in the month.
I think you
No,
guys should
no,
actually,
120 is on the
120
6th.
Turnpike, and the later
120
one.
is on the 6th.
I say
I
we
just
skip
know
the
it doesn't
later.
interrupt Florida.
I think you guys should still meet that day, but I won't be there because I wasn't needing to approve those minutes since I didn't sit on it.
I also won't be there.
That's very generous of you, Paul.
Then we have the 28th.
All right,
We have
fine, the
no
6th is okay then.
applications.
So we have the 28th. There's no application, so if you want, we can do the
Minutes on the 6th.
the minutes on the 6th.
All right.
I'm not sure if anything's going to come up with the warrant article in the meantime, so I don't know if you want to keep that date reserved.
Which
Let me
one?
see.
The 28th?
The 28th for the warrant article. Although, I believe the warrant closes February 6th, so there's that. But I'll be in touch about public hearings with the planning board and stuff like that.
Okay.
So we're meeting on the 6th, and it's going to be at the public safety.
Yes.
Yep.
Good, good.
Do you want to keep the 28th as like a TBD in
Yeah,
case
do we wait till
anything-
the 6th to see if there's anything comes up, and if nothing on the 6th, we
Yeah.
can cancel it?
Okay,
I mean, I'm around.
I'm around,
I'm
but-
not going anywhere.
Yeah.
okay. I mean,
Not when the
We'll be
CBA
celebrating the leap year, that's about it.
And what,
we can do it via Zoom too, so
Yeah.
it's much easier.
Try to like warm up like a lizard.
We should do it on the 29th, because we don't normally have a 29th.
Oh,
Do we have a 29th?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, we'd be
and
celebrating the
then,
leap year.
the other
and
one
then
was.
March, right?
Yeah, the other one, is, we're scheduled to have a hearing on March 20th, and I'm not going to be available that day, so I don't know if we can move that out to the 27th of March?
No objection for me. But then we have one on the 3rd, right?
It's a check-in meeting then.
We have a check-in on April 3rd, yeah.
March 27th is fine with me.
Yeah, same here. I'm fine on the 27th. I'm fine to move it.
I'm fine with that. Doesn't interrupt my dental appointment.
To the best of my knowledge, it sounds fine. It's another Wednesday, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
a regularly
That actually.
scheduled meeting.
Okay, I just have to,
Okay,
when did February 6th come up?
Yeah. No, I don't have a.
that was, because it's for the 40B, and we heard it in December, but then pushed it to February 6th in hopes of getting peer review going.
Oh, my God. That's a problem.
Shot by White Beach. Yeah. I go down, I go every year, but I'll be back, and then I don't go out of country till a couple months.
All right.
Okay,
Okay. Paul,
well,
Is it go time?
it's go
good
time.
time.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All right, meeting to adjourn has been made and seconded. All in favor, respond with aye. Opposed, nay. Doug?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Doris?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Williams, aye. That closes the meeting. Thank you very much, everybody.